You're listening to the Novice Experience, a podcast that explores the opportunities and challenges commonly encountered by students and young people. I'm Calvin Chan, and chatting with my guests, I'm going to take a deep dive into their meaningful stories, the lessons they've learned, and how they can inspire others. Let's get going. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Novice Experience. I'm your host, Calvin Chan. Today, my friend Emily Ip is here, joining our show. She's a Bachelor of Kinesiology graduate from the University of British Columbia, and she finished her Bachelor in Education in 2019. She's a teacher who's now teaching at a high school where she's pursuing her passions for teaching students and physical activity as well. So Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Calvin, for the introduction. Hello, everyone.
How's it been? I know COVID has been so hard on educators. So, obviously your role and your position is so important nowadays.
Obviously, COVID is very different. The schedule for high school has changed dramatically. I think all of you who are in high school know about that, but we just try to make it as fun as we can for the students.
Emily, before we go into our podcast, I like to start with an origin story of yourself. So sort of where you're born and from, where you're raised, some of the most defining moments that make up who you are today.
So I was born and raised in Richmond, BC, and I am currently still in Richmond. I've worked in Richmond, I've lived in Richmond, and now I'm working in Richmond. So I'm stuck in this little bubble, but it's nice to get out sometimes and check out other areas. But I think this is where I will be for a very long time. So other than that, I became a teacher because high school has just been a great experience for me. I grew up playing sports, and back then sports was everything. I didn't really care about the academic aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why I wanted to become a PE teacher.
Great. And before I ask you more questions to go in depth with, your journey in becoming a teacher, I like to do a segment called Give Me Five, which is a lightning round of questions so our listeners get to know you better. You don't really have to explain or elaborate your answers. You can give short or long answers. It's really up to you. So question number one, what's something you could eat for a week straight?
Pho.
Pho. I love pho. And I've actually like picked more dishes outside of just like the noodle soup,
Oh,
like the
yeah.
vermicelli and the rice.
Spring
Like
rolls.
Vietnamese food. Yeah, spring rolls. Like Vietnamese food in general is really, really good
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Number two, who inspires you?
Who inspires me? All my old high school teachers, honestly. I still keep in touch with them nowadays, so it's been nice.
For sure. Like we went to the same high school, and yeah, there were definitely some really, really good teachers who, really taught us good values and habits, and really mentored us throughout the way. And I'm really grateful for that as well. Number three, if you could relive one experience in your life, what would it be?
Uh, I think all my traveling experiences, just being in a different area, meeting strangers and having them show you around. I think
Mm-hmm.
all of those are great. So going on a geo trip,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
going
The
on a geo
geography
trip,
trip. Yeah.
with just students, no parent guardians, all was really fun, and just traveling abroad.
Yeah, and what I loved about geography trip, and it was like our senior year trip where we're learning stuff, right? We're learning about geography. We're going to a different places in the States, but it's so outdoorsy. That's what I really like about it. Most field trips are indoors and you're at a museum or whatnot, but this one's like you're doing hikes and you're visiting sand dunes and hot springs and stuff. So it was really fun for sure. Um, my next question is really related. You're an adventurous person. What's your favorite outdoor activity?
I love off-roading. So I just got my
Yeah,
off-roading vehicle, my Jeep Wrangler. So I just love going out to little hidden spots by a lake
nice.
or by a body of water and just set up a fire and relax.
Yeah, do you do like camping as well?
I do camping,
For
yes.
sure. Yeah, that's the go-to lifestyle to get away from the
The
busy city
city.
life.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. This one's related to our episode. Describe your favorite teacher.
Describe my favorite teacher. Ooh, I hope they don't watch this so they don't think they're my favorite. But my favorite teacher, Definitely is one who listens not only with uh, helping in my studies, but my personal life. I think they are someone who can give advice for anything and just personal growth. Um, and obviously supporting my athletic journey of playing sports, coaching. So I think,
Cool, and we'll get into that because I'm sure your experiences with some of your favorite teachers have really influenced, how you want to be your teacher and how you want to sort of shape your career. So we'll definitely get into that. But we'll start off with like, why did you want to be a teacher? Like, what does it mean to you to be an educator? And obviously you're mentoring the next generation of kids.
mhm. I think being a teacher, I went into it wanting to understand students and be there for students just like how the teachers were there for me. It's not as much as what you're actually teaching academically, but it's helping somebody grow as a person. I think just because from grade 8 to grade 12 is such a big range for how much you can learn and experience.
Yeah.
Um, and I personally was at school for so long, from the morning till all the way till 9 p.m., scorekeeping games and playing sports myself. So I think that really left a mark on me. And it was a place for me to make new friends and meet new people and find an outlet, because playing sports, you just let everything out. And I think being able to provide that for future generations is really important.
I think this might be an obvious question, but like what's different about sports and teaching sports compared to say if you're like a science teacher or a math teacher? Obviously you're passionate about physical activity yourself, but why is PE, physical education, and sports so different from other subjects, and what do you look forward to um, in regards to carving out your career in teaching physical activity?
So PE now is actually changed to physical health education. Um,
Okay.
we added a lot of health components to it, so mental health,
Nice. Yeah.
sexual education, which we get to teach now and not the planning teachers. And it's really hands on. We shifted from a traditional way of having scantrons for writing rules of basketball, for example, like how high
Right.
is the net, to actually letting the students experience it.
Hmm.
So I think they're not sitting around, and being able to move is such an important part of a day.
Hmm.
So they're just not all lazy in the classroom. So, and just seeing students showcase their leadership, their teamwork, I think is really important. And just being able to provide that environment for students to include others in games,
Yeah. Yeah, for
especially for
sure.
students who are shy and they don't really like dodgeball, for example. There are so many options that can include students.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was thinking, sometimes people ask me like, what kind of sports are you gonna put your kids through? And like for me, it's like, oh, I don't really care what sport they go through, but as long as it's a team sport, right? And that's how you learn, that communication, that teamwork, and just being understanding of other people and how to succeed with them. I think that's a really important environment to be in and grow in for sure. So it sounds like what you're teaching is much more diverse and involved, compared to what we were going through back then. So when you were going through your teacher education program at UBC, did what you learned reflect the environment that you're in right now when you're actually working with students?
It did. There were more components than I thought I'd touch upon in the BEd program. So we did a lot of Indigenous education.
Wow.
We did social justice.
Hmm.
We did a lot of social emotional learning. So it basically touches on all corners and all areas of what we would actually be thrown into when we actually get a teaching contract.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And what were some of the challenges like you had to go through? Obviously, you're young, you're still learning, and I guess like working with kids as well, it takes time and experience. So, like so far, what has been some of the challenges you've had to overcome, and what are some of the biggest lessons learned for you?
Mhm. Like you said, we're always learning. Everybody's just learning, even teachers.
Yeah,
Sometimes my students teach me things that I don't even know.
yeah,
So I think the most shocking. part is, um, I'm sure you and I were both really hardworking students. And I
Yeah.
think it's just when you're actually a teacher, there are some students that just don't care about school. And it's hard to just get on
Right.
their case and have them show up and appreciate school and want to learn and meet new people. So I think the most challenging part is to get to know the student and to connect, which is not really a challenge.
Hmm.
Um, it's one of the best parts of being a teacher is when you actually make that connection and they show up for you, then you've succeeded. So um, the challenging part is the step to get there, and then it's
Right.
rewarding to actually have them come and want to talk to you and they're on time and submit all their assignments.
That's really interesting because one thing that I was curious was, what does success look like in the classroom? Because, obviously when we're in the corporate world, for most other professions, there's business baselines we have to meet, right? You have to do X amount of sales in a quarter. You have to generate X amount of revenue. There's like a quantifiable amount that someone has to meet to do their job well. So, what does success look like as a teacher? Because if you're mentoring students and you want them to grow, it's hard to measure that, right? So, like, I guess this can be in your point of view as well, but like, how do you measure success, and what does a good teacher mean to you?
I think success in my department is very different. It's very flexible in a way, just because I teach athletic leadership and resource.
Hmm.
So all the students individually have their own line of their goals and their threshold of actually succeeding. And there's no same goal for all the students. They come in and we get to know them, their personalities, and it's just their success is them growing.
Right.
And sometimes it could be just showing up on time. Sometimes it could be having their binders organized. I also work with special education students,
Right.
so students with autism, students with
Hmm.
Down syndrome, ADHD, and all of that. And honestly, they come in, maybe they're in a really bad mood, and success for them just looks like not screaming out in the middle of class.
Right.
So if they're able to listen well, then that's already a great day for them and for us. Um, so every day is a surprise. We don't know the mood that the students come in with,
Yeah.
but it's always great because the kids love coming in because it's different from
Hmm.
staying at home all day because of COVID, especially. So
Hmm.
that's
Wow. When you gave that answer, I was reminiscing about my time in high school as well. I feel like once we got into university and college and going into the workforce after graduating with our bachelors, it just feels like expectations are so high, for a person, and it just like in the moment when you gave that answer, it just brought me back to being in that high school environment where each day like success just means like you had a good day at school, you were safe, you were happy, or maybe you were in the lab and you were able to do that science experiment on your own, right? Like you were able to do that jump shot. Like those are the small achievements and goals that teachers really emphasize, I think. And now that you've given that answer, it really reminded me back then that I took for granted too, that those were the small achievements back then that really pushed us forward and gave us a really positive experience at school.
mhm. Yeah. And to add on that, like you can be the smartest person, right? But if you're not
Yeah.
happy, then what's the point of all of that? So
Yeah. Oh, now I miss high school.
right. Yeah, same. But I'm sort of in the same environment, so it's nice. But I really hope that students understand that too. Like my grade 11 and 12
Mhm.
students, they're stressing about university applications. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? University, you might be going into it for 5 years, and that at the end, you don't even know what you want to be.
Yeah.
I don't just be happy and do what you want and explore your options. So.
Yeah, and it's cool, I guess, like you're in a really unique position because you're a really young teacher too. Some people they go out in an industry and they come back to be a teacher, so they're a bit older and they're farther away from the next generation. But I feel like you can give like really sound advice, you're understanding from the point of view of these students.
I hope that's the case. We'll see.
So obviously, like being a teacher, it was just like getting a job, right? You had to apply, you had to maybe do some networking. Obviously, there's a job interview. I'm actually really interested in that because I know that you have to interview with the principal.
Mhm.
And as a high school student, like you see the principal as just any other teacher, right? Like the principal back then was also a classroom teacher, and they're the figurehead of the school. But what was that process like of getting a job as a teacher? Because we never really talk about that, right? Was the process difficult? Did you have to consider different locations? um, and did you have to pitch like what subject you had to teach, depending on what was the job opening?
Mhm. So if I rewind back a little bit to remember, once you're finished practicum, your school advisor, so the teacher that you work under, you take over their classes, your school
Right.
advisor and your faculty advisor, which is from UBC, they come and observe you. So they write a report for you. And this report you would carry with you for your first job. Because whenever you get another job, then the school principal will write it for you.
Oh,
So
okay.
I had my FA report and my SA report, um, and I had to apply through the school district. So I applied for SD 38, which is Richmond, and then I applied for Delta, Surrey, Vancouver, Burnaby.
Hmm.
And when you get into each district, they have their own set of interview
Okay.
questions for you. And then once you're in the school district, you branch out to the different schools that you want to apply for. And within each school, there are the different subjects that you can apply for.
Oh, I
So,
see.
yeah, so typically you would apply for positions in which you did your B.Ed program in. So mine was PE. And since for practicum, I was teaching special education, it sort of
Oh,
gave me a
yeah.
step up to apply for a resource and special ed position.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
that's really cool. How long did that process take?
Um, I would say the district interview was you apply right when you're in the middle of your practicum, and then they got back within a week. They interview you, and I got my acceptance within 1 week. So it's
Wow.
pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really quick.
Mhm.
Um, what was the job interview like? Are the questions really similar to just any other regular job interview? Like, tell me about yourself, or like, why do you want to be here, right? Or
Mhm.
is it more focused on like the technical work, which is, I guess, like you're educating?
Mhm. So the district interview was very generic, like
Okay.
strengths, weaknesses, how do you do assessments, why do you want to be a teacher?
Hmm.
And then when I got this Richmond secondary interview, the questions were more specific into my position, so resource
Okay.
and athletic leadership. So some of the questions were like, what would you do if a student talked back to you and started screaming in class?
Oh, okay. So more like the behavioral situational
Yeah.
questions.
Mhm.
Well, that's cool. And they have a criteria to evaluate you, I guess, like how you respond to these situations.
I'm not sure if it's like criteria, but maybe just their own judgment of what they like to hear in comparison
Yeah.
to other
Yeah.
applicants.
But I mean, you've coached and you were a student leader back then, and obviously you went through your education program at school. So I'm sure like you know how to deal with all these situations. You've worked with kids a lot too, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's definitely the experience that helps. And
Mm.
the class that I'm teaching right now, athletic leadership, I was actually a student in for 3 years back
So
in
you
Iowa High
understand.
School.
Yeah. Cool. And what's life outside of the classroom? Obviously, there's that like regular school hour. I want to know like behind the scenes, like how are teachers like? Because we never get to hear that, right? Like, what do you guys do over lunch break? Do you guys like eat lunch together, or like after school? Like what are you doing? Are you just marking homework? Are you preparing for the next day?
Mhm.
Like what kind of conversations goes between like what kind of conversations do you have between teachers? Because like do you talk about the students, do you talk about your job? You're just like, oh, I'm really tired today. Like what happens behind the scenes?
Yeah, so I'm really lucky that my department has all the EAs, all the resource teachers together. We have a
Right.
big room. So morning is coffee time, talking time, chatting time. Honestly, how you chat to your friends is how we chat.
That's
Students
great.
start rolling in, it's serious time, business time. But
You
um,
put on a brave face even though it's Monday morning and you just had your coffee.
mhm, exactly. But I mean, it's fun. All the teachers, we're just all human. So we rant, we talk about our own lives. We talk about what we've been shopping for, places to eat and all that. So,
That's awesome. And now I'm curious because then, because if you hang out together a lot, and obviously, like, it's important you guys have a good dynamic between each other, right? You're a team, you run the school together. Um, how is it like dealing with people or your coworkers, I guess, who are different age, maybe different backgrounds, and obviously ethnicity, and there's a diversity of teachers in behind the scenes. Like, how is it like? You're obviously very young. What is that experience like? Trying to introduce yourself and I guess build that relationship with them.
Mhm. I think it's great to have teachers of different backgrounds and different ages. There's just
Yeah,
so much to learn about people, and they give so much, right? Um, but I think it's just being supportive of one another. Because of their own experience, they're able to give me so much advice. And coming in as such a new and young teacher, I was timid, obviously, but
yeah.
teachers, I guess they give off this vibe where they just want to welcome people into their classroom. So I was very lucky that this department here, especially, were really welcoming and friendly.
What's the biggest misconception of being a teacher?
Oh, misconception that we don't have lives outside of school. Like I remember going to
Yeah.
the mall and then I saw a student and she was like, Miss F, is that you? I didn't know you come to malls. And I was like, what? How else to like get clothes and food and
Yeah.
everything, right? So
Like, I need my Starbucks fix too,
great, yeah.
not just you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think back, and then like sometimes like it was such a weird feeling seeing teachers outside of the school environment too. Like, even on field trips, right? Like, maybe we went to the opera at night. It was like a 7, 8 o'clock outing together, and it's so weird seeing a teacher not in her teacher clothes, and they're just outside of that environment. They're less uptight, so
Yeah.
it was like a really really cool feeling to bump into someone too. So
Mhm.
yeah, cool. Um well, we're nearing the tail end of our episode, but I wanted to touch on some of the advice that you may have for people who are young right now. Maybe they're still in grade 12, like some of your students who are thinking about being a teacher. They're considering that career path, but maybe they're not so confident about their skills, or they're unsure about being a teacher. So first of all, like, in your opinion, what qualifies someone to be a teacher? Like, what kind of skills, I guess mostly like transferable skills and soft skills, do they need to be successful in the classroom?
I think you just have to be an understanding person. Know that students aren't always going to behave how you want them to, and you're always going to have to be able to adapt to what they bring to the table. Um, and also you're also learning, so if you don't know something you don't have to worry about it. Just be open to the idea that that's what it is, that you're always going to have to grow yourself too, and you're never just done the B.Ed program and then you're a teacher and you don't have to study anymore.
Hmm.
You're always going to have to learn. Things are always changing in the world, so you have to keep yourself updated so that you can educate yourself and your students.
Hmm. For someone who just completed a B.Ed, what are the different paths, right? Is becoming a teacher and applying to the school district the only way, or are there different things that someone can do with a B.Ed?
With the B.Ed, you can continue on even further and complete your master's degree. And you can be a principal, a vice principal. So, in the administrative side, you can also work for the school district and look after the programs. And there's within the district, there's a lot of positions, counselors, for example,
Right.
and a lot of other people who deal with students with special needs. So they
Hmm.
work alongside them, like education assistants as well. But that's another program for that.
What's different between being a teacher and maybe on the administrative counselor or working for the school district? Like, what are the differences, and what can someone expect? Before they choose which way to go.
Hmm. Um, Counselors, you deal with student timetables. You are
Right.
you deal with all the puzzle pieces, and you really develop deeper connections with the students, because if a student's having a bad day, personal stuff from home with friends. They come and see you. You're that safe place for them. So I think if you have that empathetic side,
Right.
then counseling would definitely be the way to go. And it's also
Mhm.
super rewarding. Um, and as an administrator, you deal with the higher level, you overlook the whole school, all the protocols, health and safety,
Right.
and just there's a lot of responsibilities as a administrator.
Yeah, I guess like even like during COVID-19, the pandemic and student safety, but also continuing education. Obviously, there were a lot of administrative changes. Like, what were some of the things that teachers and both like administrators and teachers, I guess, what did they have to adapt to prepare for the pandemic?
I think it's definitely shifting from a semester or linear system to a
Okay.
quarter system. So some schools were in semester system where they took 4 courses in the beginning of the year and then 4 in the second half. So like our old high school, um,
Yeah.
or a linear system where you take 8 courses throughout the year. So that shifted into a quarter system now where students only take 2 courses in 2 months. So it's like summer school. Like they power through all the material. And students who need support in resource, for example, they only get resource one time throughout the whole year.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a struggle because we want to support the students, but there's just not enough time for that. So I think
Hmm.
that is the biggest challenge for us in this department, but also just not being able to see people's faces. We want to, like, be friendly and high fives and all of that. And it's no not having any extracurricular activities is hard on the teachers and for the students because we just want school to be a fun place.
Yeah. Did you have to do like virtual classrooms?
I had to do virtual teaching in virtual classrooms near the end of my practicum when school was canceled last spring break.
Okay.
But now we're all back in person. I know Vancouver's doing a hybrid type of learning, so half online, half in person. Um, I consider myself lucky that we're all in person here,
Yeah.
direct, and we get to see the students. So
Yeah, well, I guess this is all a new experience, and like you said, teachers are always learning too. So we're all very thankful that you're taking care of the kids and the youth in our community. I know a lot of parents are glad that kids are going back to school. So, okay, to end off, what's one advice to give to a young student right now who wants to become a teacher one day? Like, how can they better prepare themselves?
I think if you want to be a teacher, anybody can be a teacher as long as you have that mindset of wanting to help people and wanting to always grow, learn about yourself, and that you can come into this workplace knowing that each day is going to be different. So if you're up for that challenge and you don't want to just sit around and do something over and over again, then this is the place to be.
Wow. Emily, thank you so much for shedding light on the teacher side and what the career is all about. I'm so happy to see that you're really pursuing your dreams. I remember when we were in high school together, you were really passionate about sports and working with younger students as well. So I know that this is sort of like your dream job now. You've made it to the classroom, and I'm wishing you all the best and hoping that you're staying safe during COVID-19.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and thanks to the listeners for tuning into another episode of the Novice Experience, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Novice Experience. Our theme song is Concrete Jungle by Audio Binger. You can find us or reach out on social media at the Novice Exp. That's the Novice EXP. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on all your podcast listening platforms. Talk to you next time.